So let's talk about the latest on the indictment. You know, the Alvin Bragg thing that went down here in New York, it was generally scoffed at in legal circles. The tone of the 37 counts that they have in this one reads a lot differently. And what prosecutors are telling me is that the most damning part of this is the parts that they have, I guess, audio evidence of from Trump's own words talking about, I could have declassified this, but I didn't. Now I have it, et cetera, et cetera. You're the lawyer. Tell me what they're up against here.
Yeah, I mean, some of this, again, through discovery, we'll find out, is that tape accurate that we're hearing? Is that exactly what was said? What is the full discussion? Because right now we're getting a clip, and clips don't always tell the full truth. There's also a right to the First Amendment, free speech. Sometimes politicians talk big, and it doesn't mean they're actually being accurate. There's also some reporting. And again, we'll see again through discovery, the process. Does this document even exist? I mean, there's been a real question over whether or not this was just the president talking and about maybe even a multitude of different documents that he may have been presented with involving, I think in this case, Iran, and just talking to a reporter in general that, hey, I can't get into details with you, but this is the real dispute, right? Because it comes down to, we haven't seen it before in court. Classification date comes after this law. This law was passed in 1917. It involves national security and defense documents. Classification comes much later, and it's made for the President of the United States. There are certain rules in place for everyone else when it comes to classified documents, but not the president. You could be in a room with the president. He could get the most top-level classified document. You could have zero security clearance, and he could decide at that moment, you get top-level security clearance. Because he's the commander-in-chief. He gets to make a call like that. So how do courts even rely on a phone call to understand the president's state of mind ever when it comes to these documents? He's the only person that gets treated this way. If it was anybody else, we could have a much different cut and dry case. In fact, Mike Pence, who was the vice president, and I'm not trying to beat up on him because I don't think that this is a prosecutable crime, and it never has been in our history.
Right.
Having the documents. If you look at how this statute works, which is not the statute of actually sharing or spreading or selling these classified documents to an enemy, that's the death penalty. These are the mishandling. If you look at Mike Pence, that's all you had to do. Why wasn't he then prosecuted? He had him. He shouldn't have had him. Prosecute him. Instead, what they do is not have a criminal case, Kevin. They have a civil case over the government says, we think these are ours. President or vice president says, I think they're mine. And you go to the DOJ civil division. You don't go to jail. You're not trying to put people in jail over this.
Right. No, that's the unprecedented part of this, is that you have a sitting president who has attempted to jail his opponent. And there's even, there's crazy convolution going on the left on this. I saw CNN, two people arguing about, no, Joe Biden didn't have anything to do with this. I think there's a reason why Vivek Ramaswamy is FOIA-ing the communications between Merrick Garland and the White House and the prosecutor in this case, because I bet you doggone sure there was communication about it.
Well, here's what President Biden could have done, 100%. He could have called it off. He could have said, this is wrong for the country. You guys are acting insane. You're going too far. If he's going to be my political opponent, I'll beat him in the election. We'll have an election. We'll go there. We've done it before. And I could do it again, but I'm not going to have you prosecuting him while he's the leading candidate to oppose me. And that's it. He has that power. So he did not have to allow this to move forward. So even if he doesn't want to say he agreed to do this, he didn't have to okay it. He could have stepped in, no issue, and said, we're not prosecuting this. It's prosecutorial discretion.
I want to point out,
he's the ultimate leader. And I think that would have been a move for the country. And it would have also set a precedent that if you want to remove presidents, we have impeachment, we have elections. I think that's why our founding fathers created impeachment, was to deal with this very unique power. When you become elected president of the United States, you're really not a normal person anymore. It's very unique in our country. You're not a king, you're not above the law, but you're certainly different than everyone else. And that's even when it comes to classification. We don't have the same rules for the president.
You know that on the left, the greatest sin is always hypocrisy, and yet it is not one that they ever seem to be very much concerned about with themselves. And I just want to point out that in the 2016 cycle, President Trump campaigned on the fact that Hillary Clinton destroyed classified documents, beat cell phones with hammers, wiped servers clean, then mocked reporters that asked about him. And she said, "Well, you mean what? With a rag?" He could have done the same thing that the Biden DOJ is doing now, and President Trump chose not to pursue that, chose not to go down that road. In fact, you probably remember more than most, Jordan, that James Comey came to Congress, and it was televised everywhere, and he said, we have these 2,000 documents that violate, proper handling of what they are. Then the famous phrase, but no serious prosecutor. I remember him putting the emphasis on the word no serious prosecutor would ever bring this case to trial. My, oh my, how things have changed at the DOJ.
It's the same exact situation. It's a more extreme example than Hillary
Except
Clinton's,
she wasn't president.
She wasn't president, and there was no allegation that she did anything with the documents. There was no evidence that she sold the documents or was trying to give them to people illegally. But she just had them and destroyed. But she did not have that unique power as the president to declassify whatever they want and to also grant top-level security clearance to whoever they want orally. There's all this talk that everything has to be written down. For everyone else, sure. But there's no standard like that for the president of the United States, which I think when you ultimately get into court and you get into appeals, I think a lot of federal courts, and I think if they're being fair, are going to say, this is not our job. This is not our role, because it is not clear by the statute. We have other ways to go at the president. We're not going to be in the business of putting politicians behind bars over who has what piece of paper and a dispute between the National Archives and a presidential library.